guarding Bryant. Artest looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant dribbling, has to put it up with the buzzer. Banks it in! Oh, he banks in the three! And the Lakers win the game!
Good morning. What is happening, everybody? It's 9 a.m. on Wednesday, so you know what that means. It's our regular Wednesday show, Winning on Wednesday. I am here alone today. Joe had to catch a flight on a big old jet airliner for a wedding and also to go spend some time with his grandpa up in Indiana. So you got me, you got all me, nothing but me. It's going to be a good time. I guarantee it. We do have a smoking hot guest. And as always, right, we kick it off with our weekly win, and my weekly win is pretty simple. As some of y'all probably know, I'm one of the coordinators behind the Invictus Conference that's coming up here in July in San Antonio that is designed for the Spanish community. And my win is simple. This event is going gangbusters. We're getting a lot of great buzz about it. It's definitely starting to trend, and I'm just really proud of the community that's pulled together to support and put this event forward. So thank all you guys out there that are getting behind this event to support it. This is the very first ever Spanish speaking insurance conference. No one's ever done it. We've been talking about it for about 4 or 5 years. Nobody's done it. And I finally got to the point where I'm like, look, you guys keep saying, hey, we need a Spanish event. Hey, we need a Spanish speaking event. Everybody's talking about it, but nobody's doing it. So I got together with some of my friends in the business that have been expressing their interest in doing one and said, look, they call me the connector. It's what I do. I can coordinate. I can put people together. So listen, I've got all of you together. Who's ready to help throw this event with me? And I've got some killers that are doing. I mean, we got Clarissa Gonzalez. She's #1 with WellCare. She is, at least in the Texas area, absolute killer, runs Centro de Ayuda. She's behind it. We got Gabriel Tovar in there. Obviously, my wife's going to be picking up where I leave off as the master of ceremonies and host. We've got Carlos Polito. We got Christian Hernandez. We got Nancy Polchini. We have some seriously heavy hitters that are putting behind this event or getting behind this event as speakers, coordinators, organizers. And truthfully, I couldn't be happier. So that is definitely my weekly win. If you've got a weekly win, drop it in the comments. Let us know what's happening for you. And certainly make sure that you let Facebook view your StreamYard view your Facebook comments. Always forget which way that goes, but it's just a simple click of the button. You should see it up in the description on the show. That helps prevent you being an anonymous user, and we can actually see who you are, like Miss Lovely Aaron. Love it here. Thank you for tuning in, Aaron. You are always here supporting the show. Really appreciate it. So see, like Eric Viero, instead of, he just comes in anonymous. He says who he is, but he's still anonymous because he hasn't allowed Facebook to view his StreamYard comments. But without further ado, I want to get our guest on. This is a superstar guest. I met this guy, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was August of 2020. We were at a men's networking event actually in Springfield called the Power Players event. There was about 25 guys that all got together. We spent half of the day coaching and training each other and another half competing and playing. We basically played water volleyball. We played pickleball, cornhole, all kinds of games to compete and, talk some smack with one another like guys do, and just had a really, really good time. So I'm super excited to bring him on. The dude is absolutely lighting it up in the Medicare space. I call him one of the young guns in insurance because he's young. I think he came out of the womb selling insurance. Like, that's how young the dude is. But let's get him on here. We got Mr. Matt Temmen. What is happening, dude?
Not too much, man. Just running the business, keeping it all together, and like you said, trying to sell some insurance.
Just running the business. Absolutely, man. Well, it's definitely a pleasure to have you on. I appreciate you joining me. You're the owner, for those of you guys that don't know, he's the owner of and creator of Missouri Medicare Advisors. What else would you like to tell them if you take a moment just to kind of introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah. So, we run mostly a telesales shop here in Springfield. I now have, we had 2 people start yesterday, so 21 employees. And, we also focus on the broker side. It's just not our main focus. So we have some brokers running around the Midwest and everything. But we also do some local advertising as well, and we get walk-ins and local people as well. So we're probably helping 350 to 400 new clients a month right now with Medicare, and then just the ancillary policies that go with that, and just looking to grow and expand. And we keep adding office space just because we need a bigger team, and we're excited to see where things go.
Dude, your growth rate has been absolutely phenomenal. Like I met you about 3 years ago, and I remember then you were telling me, what you were doing, kind of how big your team was, what kind of production you were doing. And it's nuts because number one, you're obviously very young. Number two, you're obviously extremely successful. Number three, you're extremely humble about it. And there's even some people in the industry that kind of joke about how frugal you are, which we'll get into that, kind of some of those lessons that maybe you can pass on to some of the people here. When I started in this industry 20 years ago, right, guys like you didn't exist, truthfully. Like they really didn't exist. There wasn't people at 24, 25, 26 years old that were blowing up 7 and 8 figure production businesses, maybe even 9-figure. They just didn't exist. And I think you're a testament to the digital age of insurance. And so I kind of wonder if you have anything that you could say to speak to that. Like, what do you think, in your opinion, has changed from, say, the days where I came in, where we're all writing paper apps, we're doing direct mail, and we're banging on doors, versus the way that insurance is being sold now by young people like you?
So I think a perfect example of this is something that we experienced in the office this week. So, I have a background, like my dad's a welder, my mom's a teacher, grew up on a farm of like 500 acres, more cows than people kind of community. And, so I didn't really have a technical background at all. I was going to I wanted to be a financial advisor growing up, right? Nothing about tech or anything, but I've learned in the business that the tech and the marketing side is really what fuels the business, at least in our space. And this last week, we're doing a new campaign with handwriting machines. And so these are basically, if you know anything about a CNC machine, it's this machine that just does movements all over the place. I have no idea how to use it, right? And so me and another guy, his name's Preston. He's kind of my Robin. I'm Batman, he's Robin kind of deal. And so he helps me figure stuff out. And we don't know anything about it, but it's like, hey, where can you find an answer to everything? Google and YouTube. And so, a lot of agents will say, hey, I don't know how to run Facebook ads. I don't know how to run YouTube ads. I don't know how to write a sales letter or copyright or any of these things. And I think the advantage that really anybody has, whether it's young, old, or in between nowadays, is you can literally just look it up, right? Like maybe when you started, Tony, it's like that information, like you just had to go through it to figure it out. And some of that is real in business. Like to hire your first employee and fire your first employee and to have the right employee contract in place, you just kind of have to go through it, because the first time firing someone is about the toughest thing you'll ever do. And then it just becomes easier, and you have the guidelines and, the paperwork in place to do it. But everything is literally online. Like someone has probably done it before. And if they haven't, maybe you're onto something, but it's all Google and YouTube. I say this a lot, especially to my team, like this business takes 2 things, and it's grit and Google, and you can just live by that. And anything that you don't know how to do, you can probably just go to Google real quick and find it out. Even coding, whatever it is, it's all there, and you can probably just copy and paste the code wherever it needs to go.
What's the most outlandish thing you've ever Googled to learn about your business?
Probably the CNC stuff. So
CNC
I,
stuff?
I tried to mirror my handwriting onto this handwriting machine, and so we use a software called Calligrapher, and so I hand boxed each letter and wrote it, and then it copied it and made it an actual font onto what's called Inkscape, and then it translated onto the handwriting machine. So this handwriting machine is actually writing my handwriting by itself. So this is like the most outlandish campaign I've ever thought about. But I'm like, it's so crazy that we just have to do it.
Can you integrate Chat GPT to it?
We try to, right? So anytime
Of course you have.
my agents do AHIP or certifications. Shoot, it's written a couple of our I hate to say it, but like our termination letters so that they're like legally compliant and stuff. We have it write all sorts of stuff because none of us are lawyers and we want to make sure the proper verbiages are in there without
Sure.
having to pay, $500 an hour to a lawyer. And so we just use that and it does the deal.
Awesome. So real quick, and we're going to dive more into your background and a little bit more about where you came from, but real quick, just to make sure that everybody understands, and this isn't to put you too much on point, right? But we know insurance is a numbers game. We know that people want to listen to folks that are proven successful. So just, if you don't mind, how many people do you have on your crew right now, roughly?
So we have 21 active W-2 employees, and then we probably have another 120 brokers. And Tony, as you know, probably better than anyone, that's the 80-20 rule. So probably only about 20 or 30 of those actually write on a consistent basis. Maybe 50 to 60 come out during AEP and write an app, right? And then from a revenue perspective. We'll probably do between 4 to 4.2 million top line this year. Of course, like I'm a guy that's like even last year we had solid revenue, but I was like, let's just throw it. So I did a lot of annual payments on stuff when it comes to like even SEO, and a lot of people are saying not to do SEO. And if I'm being real honest, that's like you need to do SEO if everyone's telling you not to do SEO. And so but now take that with a grain of salt because like there's some things that are just not instant return, and that's one of them, right? Or like TV, like we're doing $10,000 a month of TV. Like these are things that if you're a brand new agent, unless you just have a lot of money, you probably shouldn't be doing because the time horizon of an ROI is just too long. And so yeah, we have a good business, a strong business, and every day there's a new challenge. I'll be honest. Like it seems like something, whether it's an employee that's having trouble with this or this new thing that comes up with compliance, or hey, our integrations broke, or yesterday our DNS servers on our email kind of like we're fighting against each other, so our emails weren't getting delivered, so having to go in and fix the DMARC records and all that sort of stuff. Like there's always something that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
It's just as a business owner and an entrepreneur, you have to expect it, know it's going to happen. Because when I started bringing on employees, I was kind of like this, like, oh man, we sold 12 apps today, and then tomorrow 2 people are sick, and like I was getting pretty worked up about stuff. But then what happened is like, hey, like there's a guy named Alex Hormozy, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know who that is. But he said that the top entrepreneurs or the most able entrepreneurs in the world, no matter what, their emotions stay consistent, right? So whether you sell 29 apps that day or you sell 0 and 7 people are sick, it doesn't matter. Your emotions stay consistent. And that's something I've honestly had to work on a lot because I think a lot of people see me as a calm person, and maybe I put that out, but on the inside, there's always stuff going on here. And so running the team, getting more employees, it just takes that consistent emotion, which I'm getting better at, but I think everyone can work on that.
I've always experienced you to be a very even keel.
I really try to be, but inside, maybe it's not so much.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that you said that. My friend John Wetmore has said something very similar, and he said that he practices really hard to minimize everything, right? If he goes at his team, writes 100 million, minimize that. Like, cool, we wrote 100 million. Like, that's just the way it's supposed to work. If his team goes out and they shit the bed the next day, it's like, okay, that's just the way it goes today. Tomorrow's a new day. And he tries to minimize everything in his mind so that it doesn't trigger emotions.
Totally. And so for me, what works really well is taking myself out of the situation and thinking like, is this really that big of a deal? And in the grand scheme of things, like nothing is that big of a deal. Like nothing. I've even had lawsuits for like our name because like there's another MMA but not named Missouri Medicare Advisors. And so like they sued us because of the abbreviation. And like these are things that actually they don't even matter because we're probably gonna have to change our name anyway with the new Medicare compliance coming out.
Right.
So it's like it didn't even matter in the first place. And so you go through the punches and the left hooks and stuff, and you realize that like, hey, these are always gonna happen. You expect them, and then like it's just another day.
Right on. When I just want to start going back and getting a little bit more of your history. When did you write your very first insurance application?
I started out on the final expense and mortgage protection side. So that was, I think I'm coming up on my 5 years in June. So probably June of 18 was my first ever, like that was my first month in the industry.
When did you start MMA?
About 2 years ago.
Okay.
So
So
I
you're
had
still
done
pretty fresh.
Medicare, just independently for about 2 years prior,
Right.
and then started like the office and the brand, if you will, about right at 2 years ago. So that was my first employee started October of 21.
Okay. So growing up as a kid, right? You said your dad was a welder. You grew up in a space where there's more cows than there are people. Where did you come up with the idea to become a financial advisor? Like, where did that infect your brain?
So my parents never had a lot of earning potential, but they were the people that like they lived the Dave Ramsey life, and it worked out very well for them. Like, they, I don't know what their net worth is, but I would say it's 5 to 10 million, but you would never know it, right? They're driving, and I live it to this day, right? They're driving the 20-year-old cars, and they have a lot of land that they own and all that. And so like financially, it was always like, hey, save money, budget, coupon, all these different things. And some of those things drive me crazy nowadays, like couponing, like get that out of here. But finance was always on my mind. And my mom, like she was a teacher at my high school, and so she was always putting on career fairs, and so I got to meet a lot of those people, and so I met a lot of financial advisors. I'm like, that seems really cool, Edward Jones, woohoo, right? And just always had it on my mind. Went to college, thought that's what I was going to do as like president of the Financial Management Association as a freshman. Then I dropped out, and everybody was like, "What are you doing?" So I was always looking down the financial path. Started doing random. I was a recruiter for a staffing agency at one point. I worked at a bank. I hated it all, and then saw an ad to sell insurance, and they're like, make $30,000 a month, and I'm like, well, if I can make 3,000, I'll be good. And that was actually on Indeed. So if you're using Indeed and you think it doesn't work, it might, right? We find actually some really good people on Indeed. You have to go through hundreds, but you do find the
Sure.
good people, and that's kind of how it went. I was kind of always into the personal development side. Like, a lot of people can hate on Ty Lopez, but when I was 16 or 17, I was into his 72 steps, I think is what it is. And it was all about personal development and expanding out of, say, hey, you don't have to work a job your whole life. And so that's probably why I hated all the jobs, is because I knew it's what I didn't want to do, but I had to do at the time. So yeah, that's kind of my background. And then kind of like revenue was always decent, right? Even the first year, it was never a top line problem. It was always a problem of like, hey, I just want to spend it all and I want to continue to grow and invest. And so I would say, like, I've never, before December of last year, actually, I had never paid myself more than $32,000 a year, like W-2 out of the business. I just either kept it in the account or I spent it on something new. Now we've upped that finally only to 60,000, right? But I've always been a guy that's always going to invest back in. And I would say last year and this year is finally to the point where it's like, dang, like this stuff's paying off big time, right?
This
And so,
stuff. What do you mean this stuff?
like, just revenue wise,
Okay.
like all the, spending $13,000 on a sign, or fronting $60,000 worth of SEO. Like, these are all things that I've done in the past, or
Hmm.
spending $63,000 on books, right? These are all things that I don't think that just an agent would do. But I was like, this stuff will pay off on a long enough time horizon. And from a revenue perspective, it is there now. And we're going to continue to do that. Like, I just bought 30,000 stamps 2 days ago, and it's like, these are crazy things that like, hey, how long will it take to, get an ROI on 30,000 stamps? Like, I don't know, but we're just gonna try it out and see what happens. And I take about 20% of my marketing budget. We probably spend about 70 or 80,000 a month on marketing, and I take 20% of that and I invest it into new things, whether that's like sending out the book, or handwritten letters, or TV. We just invest it into something new, because what we're doing now works, but it could not work in 3 months or 3
Right.
years. And so we want to stay top of, on the edge, on the cutting edge of marketing, because once you bring on a team, W-2 wise, you got people's livelihood on
Yeah.
you, right? And so that it used to stress me out big time. Now it's just like, hey, like, we're going to meet payroll every time, right? But you have to stay cutting edge on stuff because you really do. You have a team that is relying on you. I am the marketer in the business. I don't sell policies anymore. I run the finance and the marketing of the business. And so I'm either looking at spreadsheets or I'm looking at Facebook and YouTube ads, right? But we have to stay cutting edge so that the team, they're relying on me as a business owner, and I have to be there for them.
Yeah, understood, man. How did you shift gears from that? I mean, is it just the fact that revenue comes in now that, hey, I'm not stressing anymore because I see we're making payroll, no big deal?
Kind of, yeah. It's also residuals, as everyone in the industry knows, is like that gives you comfort, right? That basically before the month even starts, you have X dollars coming in. That puts your mind at ease a lot. It's not all because when you're first getting going, let's say you even have 1,000 clients active that are paying renewals. It's just that by itself is not enough to like fuel growth. If you're trying to scale employees, it's just like 20,000, 30,000 a month. Like that goes by like that. If you're trying to scale. And so just having, a 7-figure renewal because, our payroll will probably be like $1 million this year. And so knowing that, hey, my payroll's covered by my renewals helps a lot. And it's not all based off new sales. Like we're selling more policies than we ever have now because we have more agents
Of
and more
course.
marketing than ever. But it just puts your mind at ease knowing that, hey, my people are good, at least in the current, the 21 people that we have now. We can just grow as fast as we can because I know my people are going to get paid.
Makes sense. Makes sense. You had mentioned earlier that you answered an ad on Indeed, right? For $30,000 a month, right? Those big glamorous
That's
ads.
right.
I want to get your opinion on that in a second, but was that your very first job?
That was my first job in insurance. So
Okay.
I had worked at a bank as a teller. I had been a recruiter for a staffing agency. I had a lot of jobs in like 2 years. Like I dropped out of college and then I was going after this network marketing thing at the time. And, of course that company went bankrupt, of course, because it seems like every company in that space does. But I was just doing jobs just because my dream, my goal was to be, a certain rank in this network marketing company. And it didn't work out, obviously, but in it for a good reason. I got into insurance and it was a blessing. But that was selling mortgage protection with a big name IMO, face to face, traveling to Dallas and Milwaukee and Omaha, Nebraska, basically on a 3-week loop to get the mortgage protection leads I needed to write the policies.
When did you make the shift, or what made, more importantly, what made you make the shift from doing that to where you are now?
Roll-up debt. Yeah. So on the life side, if you guys aren't on the life side, there's a lot of advancing going on because to float the lead spend, you need advances in the life space, again, unless you just have a lot of money. And so my downline agents, they're brand new, or maybe they're 6 months in, they're getting a lot of advances. Maybe they're pushing people into sales possibly. Well, it charges back. Guess what? They're a new agent. They don't have the money to cover it. Or maybe they did and they just didn't want to pay it, right? They have other bills. And so that rolled up to me. At the time, it was a huge deal. It still would be to this day. It was 15 or 18,000 that had rolled up to me. And I tell you what, that still comes to haunt me to this day. I still get notices that are like, hey, Transamerica, $1,200. It's like, I don't even know how that's possible, but I guess I'll pay it off, right? And so that I was like, I don't want to have to run all over the place the rest of my life. And this roll-up debt, like I'll pay my own debt, but I don't want to pay anyone else's debt.
Right.
And so that kind of pushed me to like look around, and I was looking at other industries. I was looking at Medicare, AC, like all these different things. And I'm like, Medicare sounds pretty promising. And it was something my team got excited about as well. Like what's really funny is a lot of new agents will be like, man, Medicare's not exciting. And I'm like, what's more exciting than working like 3 or 5 years and then like doing whatever you want after? I don't know if there's anything more exciting than that. And so that's what we all saw, got into it. The team was excited. I mean, I have people I went to kindergarten with that now, like best buddies, was in the Dominican with them last week. These guys, have 500 to 800 active clients, and they can just, people I went to grade school with are like now living life, and it's been great. It really has.
Nice. Nice. So you had a team doing mortgage protection. You had built the team, and then you convinced all of them to move to Medicare with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to act like I convinced all of them, but the right ones I
The
did,
right ones.
right?
Makes sense.
Maybe 5 or 10 of them came over and started writing Medicare, and I'd say 4 of those are still with me to this day, which I would say is decent success in
Yeah.
insurance. Yeah, like they're all we really focused on the marketing, or at least I did, and I kind of feed the team, and it's worked out so far. And again, just got to stay cutting edge so we don't lose the grip on stuff.
Yeah. What do you think's been the biggest key? Because you've built a phenomenal team, right? I mean, number one, you build a team in this mortgage protection side. You get hit with roll-up debt, which looks like a big negative, right? I'm kind of curious to what their thought process was when they saw you going through that. And then they're like, wow, now this guy wants to pivot to Medicare and do something totally different. Medicare, what are you talking about? Working with a bunch of old people? And then now you've retained some of them, about 40% of them or so, and then you've grown to the size that you are there, right? So team building is obviously something that you have a knack at, it appears to me. What do you think, in your opinion, are some of the keys in there that those people saw in you to help to follow you through that transitional process?
I got a lot of heat in high school and college from my friends for like, I was just going to do what I was going to do, right? If I'm going to drop out of college, I don't need someone to tell me like that I need to drop out of college. I'm just going to do it because I think it's the right thing to do. And so that has probably carried over. I mean, it just has. It's carried over to the business world. It's like quick implementation. One of our core values in the office is speed, right? And so I think a lot of people have these ideas, right? Oh, we should, do this funnel, or we should try this marketing thing. And it's like, I'll give you a perfect example of this. It's so funny that these are like happened within the last week, so we can bring them up on the call. I had a guy at our past office, so that was the Temmen insurance days, if you will, a small 1,200 square foot office. He stopped by. He's like, Matt, he had been an independent broker. He's like, Matt, I'm starting this agency. You know, tell me how to do it, kind of thing. Not even in my downline. So I'm like, here's how you start. You need to focus on marketing. That's what it's all about. He calls me Monday night. He's like, Matt, I'm starting this agency. It's like, dude, it's been 2 years. Like 2 years, and you've had the idea. The idea has always been there. It's like, why just do something? Do something, mess up, do something, spend some money, go into some homes, call some people, like do something, and good things will happen. But a lot of people don't get that. And so I think what my team or what my friends saw is like, dude, Matt's just gonna like do it no matter what I do, and he's gonna do it fast. And so because of that, because I usually go pretty fast, and it's not always profitable, I will say, quick results, right? Because the implementation was there, and we were getting into homes fast, and we were selling a lot of policies. A lot of success will happen pretty quickly, and I think that success was just contagious, and it just scattered through the team, and now it's moved over to the LOA side rather than the broker side. But I think that would be it.
The speed of execution.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that shows that you're obviously committed to what you're doing, right? Because if you're able to execute with speed, then that shows commitment and belief in yourself. So I assume that pours over pretty well. And I know it does, because I know some of your teammates that have been with you since the entire time. Julian, for example, who absolutely adores you, phenomenal guy himself. I'm a big fan of Julian, so hope he's doing well out there. But if you could give some advice to an agent that is brand new and they're in that space where they're like, man, I want to grow. I want to do some, I want to scale. Maybe I want to bring on some downlines. Like, if you made a couple of comments earlier in regards to your revenue level versus where you are and need to scale. Like, if you were to give some kind of basic advice on an agent, like you're ready to kick it up a notch, is there a point like in revenue where like, okay, now that I'm at this level of revenue, I can do this, or now that I'm at this space, I can do this? Like, what would you say, or maybe some of those metrics, if you break it down in that kind of a fashion?
I think that a lot of people think that they need to be somewhere before they do something, right? Like, I need to be making 100,000 a year before I can bring on an LOA, or maybe that's $1 million, or maybe it's 500,000. And I look back, like when I brought on my first LOA, I probably only had like $13,000 in my checking account, which like maybe that's just not a lot of money in business. Like that just goes so fast. And so what happens is what I've seen is that actually every person that we bring on creates actually more profit. And that's how it should be, right? And so I think a lot of people look at the expense, whether it's leads or it's an employee or a new marketing endeavor or whatever it is, and they think this is going to be a cost, but really it creates more profit because that's what it's meant for. And so I don't know if there is a certain point where it's like, hey, now I bring on the LOA, now I bring on the downline. I would just do it as quick as possible, but you have to fund it all with personal production. And so if you're a brand new agent, and I still have no kids. I'm not married. And so take this with a grain of salt if you have kids or you're married or you have the expenses that I don't have, right? The house, the cars, the daycare. Like I have team members, they're paying $1,000 a month per kid in daycare. These are just expenses that I didn't have. And so I can live off the 32,000, but you have to live way below your means. And I mean, like you're going to live in an apartment, you're going to drive a Toyota Camry, and you're going to eat Chipotle 2 times a day, right? The $9 meal. And I say eat out because I think it's more efficient than cooking at home, at least when you're getting started. Now, if you have a family, go have dinner with them, make the food. It's just different. But you have to live below the means and put it all back into marketing. And what I see a lot is agents will be like, dude, I sold 12 apps this week, so I'm not going to get leads next week. It's like, that is the exact opposite of what you should do. They get complacent at a certain point when they start making money or there's margin in their business, and it's all about what they want. If you're an individual agent, I have guys, they just want to be an individual agent. They want to get to 1,000 clients, and then they're good. And if that's your goal, you're not going to want to listen to me, right? Because I'm going to tell you to put it all back in and scale, and maybe you start on direct mail leads, then you get into seminars, then you get into maybe organic Google, then you get into webinars, then you get into SEO. But it's got to be a process. If you want to scale, you have to graduate to the next level of marketing. And the only way that you can do that is if you invest your excess cash flow. Most people just spend their excess cash flow. They start making $20,000 a month or $100,000 a month. They buy a Lambo, and that's cool if that's what you want. I am so fueled off growth. The personal income, it doesn't really matter to me. I could live off 60K probably until I have kids and be totally fine with it. Because if we're being honest, as a business owner, you can write off a lot of the stuff that is the fun part. Like if you're going to Vegas for Medicare Con, it's a write-off. So that's not even a personal expense. But live below the means, even when you see other people that are winning. Right? Because there are times as a business owner, you'll see, man, like, dude, I've been doing this for 3 years, investing everything back in, and Jim over there bought a Lambo. Like, come on, like, what am I doing wrong? Right? And you'll have those feelings, but you just got to know that run your own race, do your own thing, and base your business and your life off what is important to you, not to me, not to Tony, but what do you value? Build the business to build the life, and then it's pretty awesome.
So when it comes to investing back in your business, right, we want to live below our means, right? We want to take our revenue. We want to put as much as we can back into marketing. Would you say there is a minimum amount that you should absolutely be putting into marketing, or it's just a waste of your time?
I would it's got to be a minimum of 20% of your top line, I think, goes back into marketing. We probably do about 35% goes back into top line. So our two biggest expenses, we'll spend about $1 million on marketing, and we'll spend about $1 million, probably more than $1 million on payroll. And in insurance, there's no product to build, there's no fulfillment,
Right.
other than like your customer service team answering phone calls and doing proactive outbound. Those are your two costs. And so it's like, hey, we'll put 35% into marketing, we'll put 35% into payroll, and then we'll net 35%. And so that's a good business model. It's good profit margins. And that's just what we see over and over again consistently. As we scale, those things will always be true. We think 30% back into marketing, 30% back into payroll, and then you net 30 to 40% year over year on your top line.
Makes sense. What you talk quite a bit about being on the cutting edge, right? And trying to stay on the cutting edge. So I assume you obviously spend a lot of time educating yourself, but what, in your opinion, is the cutting edge of marketing right now? Like, what is the new thing that maybe nobody's doing or people are looking at and they just haven't mastered? I assume AI is a big part of it, but just kind of in your opinion, like what is something that is right there on the bleeding edge? It's proven some success, but people are still kind of figuring it out.
I would say just video ads, and it really doesn't even matter the platform, whether it's Facebook or YouTube. I would say YouTube's the best, but TikTok could be better. I'll be honest, we've never ran a TikTok ad, but getting on video cuts out like 90% of the market because those people will just not get on video, or maybe they're a ghost marketer on the back end of stuff. And so putting yourself YouTube, if you can target correctly, it is the winner. And it doesn't matter what you're trying to target, whether it's a webinar or a direct call or a lead form or whatever. If you can have the right message, and with how YouTube works, you only pay if they go 30 seconds, right? So I'll give you guys a tip if you're doing YouTube of like one hook that we do on the front end. It's like, hey, if you already have your Medicare figured out, you need to skip this ad right now. And it's like, okay, they're going to skip. We're not going to pay for that person. And then we're going to get people who are like, I don't have my Medicare figured out, right? And that's just like,
That's a nice hook.
There's a million different variations of that, but that's just an easy one that you can throw on the front of every YouTube ad. And then the people who aren't interested, they just skip. You don't pay for it. And then the people are like, there's a few that, just stay on regardless because they're listening to YouTube in the shower like me. But yeah, that's a good tip. And then that's what's working for us right now. If I were to give some tips on maybe things that we see in the future, a lot of it's going to be on the Google chassis of pay-per-click and just organic SEO. So I couldn't tell you a lot about SEO. I just know that we're indexing probably 10 to 15 pages a week. And we're just buying a lot of links to get backlinks onto our site. And we just do that consistently. Our keywords are, we're probably ranking about 300 keywords a month, which is pretty good. And I think the next thing will probably be TikTok. We just haven't done it yet.
Oh, the next thing for you guys.
Yes.
Is what you're saying.
And maybe even the industry, that it's so cheap, right? Because when Facebook came out, it was so cheap to target, so cheap to get in front of people, that whenever you're on the cutting edge of a new platform, it's just so cheap that whether your lead is good or whether your ad is good or not, it's so cheap to target that you're going to get a good, cost of acquisition and return on ad spend.
Makes sense.
So we might go run some TikTok ads today.
But YouTube ads are killing it for you.
We do pretty well on it. Our ad spend flips about halfway between Facebook and YouTube, about $30K a month each.
I made a joke earlier about ChatGPT, and if you were trying to integrate your little CNC handwriting machine to it, and you said that you were using ChatGPT or GPT for legal purposes, to write legal documents and things like that. You're not using it for any of your marketing?
Right now, I just don't think that it has it, if you will. Like,
okay.
I ran some stuff through it, and I'm like, I think it's good, but if you're spending the money we're spending, like, it's got to be great. And
Right.
so, do I think it will get there? Yes, I do. I just don't. It was kind of meh, if you will. It just didn't have the sizzle to it that I was looking for. Is it great for brainstorming? Absolutely. Like, hey, give me 20 ideas on what to write this blog about, or give me 20 ideas on how to hook someone into a Medicare sale, or, it's great for that. But I don't think right now, at least, it's ready for full on writing your ads. When it is, great. Just what I've ran through it, it hasn't been there yet.
Yeah. I would tend to agree with you. Because I've used it exactly for what you said, brainstorming, right? So I've had it write some content for us, but every time I go through there, I have to go back and proofread it because I've noticed some major errors in regards to the Medicare side of things.
Yeah.
Like, hey, write me a 300-word blog article on the Medicare Part B penalty, late enrollment penalty. And then you read through it and you're like, well, a lot of this is really good, but like, ooh, that is glaringly wrong. Right. Yeah. Some item that it talks about.
It's like, so the Part A deductible is $226. It's like, well, not really.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
So some of the things you got to go back and proofread, but at least it kind of gets you on track. I even used some of it to help me out with my Medicare Con opening to give me some ideas on where to go there.
It helps a lot.
Fun stuff. Well, man, this has been good. I don't want to stop just yet. A few people have joked about your frugality, right? Justin Brock made fun of you because you're still driving a Camry.
Yep.
Even though he knows you're balling. And obviously that comes back to a lot of the things you've talked about. It seems like your parents instilled that into you. Is that where you really got that from? And you've just continued to make that your own and stick with that kind of philosophy?
Absolutely. So I think that a lot of people will say, "Oh, my kids don't listen," and I'm not a parent, so take this advice with a grain of salt. My kids don't listen to me, or I don't listen to my parents, or whatever it is. And the reason that happens is because your parents, I think, it never led to success, or they didn't put in the right action to get to success. And what I saw a lot of is like my parents would budget and they would coupon and they'd save all this money, and it worked, right? There was success on the edge, and I'm like, man, like if my parents told me how to play baseball, like I'm not going to listen to them because they don't know how to play baseball, right? I'm not acting like I was a good baseball player, but the point being is like it was instilled into me at a young age. There's some things that I hate, like the couponing side of stuff, but I saw the success level that they had with that system, and so it's just carried over to my life. And I believe that everyone has their belief system of how they see the world. And those beliefs can either be reinforced on a daily basis or they can go the opposite way. And so for me, what has happened over the last 5 years being in this industry is my beliefs of frugality have continued to compound and continue to work over and get reinforced every single day. Like, how many friends do I have coming to me that are like, hey, I'm in 200 grand of credit card debt, whether it's credit cards or cars or student loans, or, I bought this car and now I hate the $1,500 payment, or I bought this house and now we can't afford it. And it's like, these are things that reinforce my frugality belief. Like, if you're going out and buying a Lambo, because that's what you want, like, that's great. Just buy it cash, right? Or have 3 times the cash in the bank. And I get
Yeah.
it. There's probably someone on here that's going to say, hey, use the debt and then invest in real estate. It's like, cool. I just don't want the payment. I just don't want the
Right.
debt. And so that's just my belief is no debt. My belief is frugality. My belief is I enjoy growing the business more than I enjoy any amount of personal income. And so these beliefs are reinforced on a daily basis. And at this point, they're so reinforced that they are a true belief. And I really can't go back on them because it's just something that's been instilled into me.
Right. That's ingrained in your behavior, your thought process, your habits, right? And they continue to compound and reinforce each other. That's pretty sharp. And I've
Yep.
heard it said many times, like, don't buy the car unless you can't afford 3 of them.
Yeah, yeah. And like there's, probably for you, Tony, and like at the point where you can buy it 4 times or 3 times, you probably just don't want to. Like, you feel
Right.
better about maybe the cash in the bank or the cash in investments rather than, like, you'd rather just have that, and what that does to your mind when it comes to, hey, stability, right? Like, at least in the first 3 years of my business, there was no stability, right? Like, I remember when I started, like, I was paying off credit cards with other credit cards, right? Like, I had like maybe $3,000 in my Roth IRA. Terrible financial advice right here, right? It ended up working out. I had to pull the money out of my Roth IRA to pay my credit card bill that I was using for leads, right? It ended up working out. Terrible financial advice, but I just had the belief that it was going to pay off, and
Sure.
I don't want to act like I've made it either, right? Like, I believe we were on the front end of our growth curve, and we're going to build a $50 million a year revenue business. Like, I truly have that belief, and it's going to go quick. So we're just getting started. We're nowhere where we will be, and the team is getting better every single day.
Is that the target, 50 million?
Yeah, we're going to build a company that has multiple divisions. So, the Medicare will get that to 1,000 new clients a month. Right now, we're doing about 350. Maybe 400 on a good month, 300 on a bad month. So we'll get that there. I believe in not deviating until it is just cranking. And my idea of cranking was 1,000 a month. So then we'll probably venture into the group health space, build a division out of that with LOAs and the service team, and then probably go into the AUM annuities, big time life cases. After that, build out 3 or 4 financial advisors in the office, and just continue to build out. Again, do one thing, get it to where you think it's cranking, if you will, for my verbiage. Then diversify your company, because if we never know what's going to happen to anything, whether it's Medicare or ACA, or heck, the compliance behind the financial advising industry, or home and auto, where all cars are automated now and there's no insurance. It's like all of it could go away at any time. And so you want to build these pillars, these foundations of your company, especially once you start getting bigger, to diversify. And so it's Medicare, it's group health, it's assets and AUM, and then it's maybe PNC. I don't know about that, but we'll see where it goes.
50 million. And then what? And what do you do? Are you done? Do you buy your Lambo? Are you exiting? Are you out?
There's a saying out there that a human being cannot see more than 10 years. You cannot see more than 10 years into the future. And so I'm just being real with you. I can't see past that.
Okay.
In my mind. And so I think that's like the 10-year goal. And heck, maybe we'll go there faster. But I can't see past that right now. But if you asked me a year ago what today would look like, it would have been totally different. And so it's hard to say where things will go.
Right.
We'll do the daily activity to create the monthly activity and the yearly activity and the decade activity, and just kind of keep growing, keep doing the right. I watched the Nike movie lately. We actually went as a team, which was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And one of Nike's principles, I think is what they're called, is I think number 9 was, if you just do the right things, you'll make money dang near automatic. And I was like, man, like so simple, right? But actually so right in business. Like, Tony, we're looking for a solution for incentives for our salespeople to give them debit cards where we can just go into the portal. If they make a $100 spiff or a $500 spiff, we just load it onto the debit card. So either Monday or yesterday, I'm on Google. I'm looking for that. I called the first 4 people on that list. What do you think happened? Nobody answered the phone.
Right.
Nobody answered the phone. I sent emails. Nobody responded to those emails. I filled out forms on their site, which if we get a Google lead in our office, we're going crazy, right? We're calling that lead ASAP. And so these principles are so simple. It's like call the person back, return their voicemail, return their email. And I would say 95% of businesses and agents just do not do that. And so if we just do the right things over, and I know cliche, right? Oh, where's the special sauce? There isn't any. There just isn't any. It's just do the right things every single day. Show up when even if there's so much money in your account that you could live for 20 years. Just continue, if that's your goal, right? I preface all that with, if that is your goal. Just continue to show up. And if you're fueled from growth like I am, it's crazy where things will go. It really is.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because the same thing happened to me yesterday. I was online shopping for a service to help me out. I had to go through 5 of them. Same thing. I went to Google, right? Looked for the people that provide, went through the top 5 that were ranked with reviews and everything, right? Top 5 on Yelp. Not a single one answers the phone. There's no way to contact them. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And it took me about the 6th person before somebody finally answered the phone, talks to me a bit, and then takes care of me. And who's getting the business?
They are,
all day,
because they picked up the phone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we have I go over this slideshow that I made with the team about once a month. I called it the philosophies of scale. And so you have one scenario where you write a client. I'm painting like the call center scenario of like, hey, they get called out of the blue because it's a cold call live transfer. And then they sign them up for a plan, probably with WellCare, right? And then they the client, the agent's like, hey, I'm going to be your agent and this is going to be great. Or maybe they just sign them up for a plan that has $500 of more dental. And then the person calls back, no answer. They email the agent back, no answer. They call the carrier, they wait on hold for 45 minutes, right? And then their cards go to the wrong address because the agent didn't verify it. And it's like, that's like worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what we do here is, number one, we're going to have an hour and 15-minute sales process to be diligent about what we're doing. We're going to edify our service department because they're going to follow up with you in 3 days and then 21 days after that. And then every 90 days forever. We're going to verify that address so you get your cards, and then we're going to follow up with them, and we're going to do exactly what we said we're going to do. And then 45 days later, that person's going to refer someone to us because of the experience that they had. It's just like, these things are so simple, but just people don't do them. They have no, like, when's the last time you called, not your client called you, when's the last time you called your client? And if you ask 100 agents that, 98% will say, I never have.
What client?
I never have.
Which one? I haven't called any of them. Not since the day I sold them.
Yeah. So
no, I did call them when their check bounced. I had to call them for that.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's
it's like they didn't want the policy anymore. That's so weird.
Perry Lunsford talks about that. You know Perry Lunsford, right? The healthy insurance dude.
I know of him, yes.
Okay. He says pretty much the exact same thing you just talked about that you pulled from that Nike movie. And I love his statement, and it rings true, and it's exactly what you're talking about here. He says that if you just do what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it, you'll be light years ahead of every other agent out there. Right?
Correct. It's
just
so
do
simple.
what you say you're going to do when you're going to say it. So basically, just live up to your promises. We're going to log out here in a minute, but you mentioned something specific. Did you call your clients every 90 days? So let's just say that client has been your client for 2 years, right? They've been your solid client. They got 3 or 4 apps with you. They love you to death. They even send you referrals. What does that conversation look like mid-year on that 90th cusp?
Hey, Jim, Tony, just calling to check in on you. And they'll be like, hey, thank you. Like it's very quick. It's very simple. We'll integrate a cross-sell call into like the third call. So it's like, I guess 270 days into them being a client, they've heard from us like 6 or 7 times, like on an outbound phone call. Plus we have all the automations in the world on the don't tell me your service if it's all automated, because that's not, like, yes, anyone can do the text and the emails. Like, that's cool. I'm talking another level. And so on that 270-day follow-up, we're going to be like, hey, like, this is really weird. You don't have any critical illness coverage on your profile that I'm seeing here. Like, did Jordan go over that with you? And then we'll probably add 20 ancillary policies a month off a service team member outbound calling our book after they've heard from, like, don't do it on the first call, because then they're just thinking you're trying to sell someone. But do it after. It's like, dude, these guys care about me. And then it's like they care about me, and like there's maybe a gap in my coverage. And so we'll add actually a decent amount of hip and cancer off that. And then we do other things. So we'll have a client appreciation dinner. And I mean, there's 500, 600, 700 people that show up to that. And this year it's probably gonna be 1,000. No small expense, right?
No,
like
not at all.
It costs money. But like, I'm such an Alex Hormozy guy. So if I reference him a lot, like, it's just because that's what I watch.
Sure.
And so he has a saying, and I don't think it's his saying, but you only have to sell because you don't know how to market, and you only have to market because you don't know how to build a product, right? And so for us, insurance is not our product. Our product is people. It's our people. It's either the agent, it's our staff, it's the client experience, all these things. And so he says that because if you just do it right, because on the front end, if you're running direct mail leads, you have to sell pretty hard, right? You have to sell to get into the door. You have to sell for the appointment. You have to sell in the appointment. You learn how to market, and then the marketing does the selling, a lot of the selling for you. And then you get really good at marketing, and it's like, these are just laydowns all day. But then it gets to the point where if you create a good enough client experience it's not just customer service. It's, hey, they became a client on the front end from good marketing, right? Not just some food cart ad, not just some get your 164 back, but good marketing. They were either calling in or they're like, hey, I want Medicare help, right? And so that's where it starts. Then the salesperson doesn't just shove something down their throat. They educate, they inform, they give options. Then they don't need to close. The client's like, yeah, I think the med supp's the way to go. Then they get a call 3 days later, they get a call. And what happens is you go from selling to marketing, but now your clients market for you, or your product is so good that you get so many referrals that nothing matters. You don't even have to spend a dime on marketing anymore. Right. And so it's one thing to say this as an independent agent. Like, so many agents will be like, yeah, I just work off referrals. It's like, yeah, like 3 a month. It's like, we're on pace to get 500 like, from our own client base, 500 new client referrals this year. And that all comes from the experience that we give. And you got to think, what does 500 referrals do for your bottom line? It explodes it, right? Because in Medicare, you're with staff costs and marketing costs, you're kind of just breaking even. You might make a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there. Or if you're going after 265, there could be a lot of margin there. But you make your money on referrals and the back end of Medicare. And so we've just focused on that so much. We have 5 customer service people. So many people that I talk to that have more of a telephonic sales process, they'll be like, yeah, I have my agent service. It's like, they're not getting serviced then. And so we invest, that's probably $250,000 a year of payroll that we invest into the service side. But, when you have a book of 4,000 or 5,000 clients, what is that? If your retention goes from 82% to 96%, it's a big number. So
Sure.
that's why we do it.
So the next, you keep giving me nuggets, and I keep having
Sure.
questions that come out with this. What do you think are the keys to client service?
Being
like if
proactive.
if you're training one of your reps and you're like, these are the things I expect from you. This is what matters. This is what creates good client service, creates retention, creates referrals, creates new business from a client service standpoint.
I would say two things is number one, proactive approach. Rather than waiting for them to call you, we're calling them. And then number two, taking responsibility for everything. Because when someone calls in and they're upset, no matter how well you service, you will have people that call in and are upset about whatever, right? Like their copay was $7 instead of $2. It's like, hey, you know what, Tony, like this was totally my fault, but I'm going to be here to help you get it fixed, right? And when you say something like that with the right tonality, it all goes every single time. The client just calms down, and because they just want to be heard on the front end. They just want to be heard. And then you're just like, hey, I take full responsibility for this, Tony, but I'm going to help you get it fixed right now or as fast as I can. And so those are the two things that we preach on. And then we send them like a brownie on their birthday, which is like something that I know that nobody is doing because it costs us about 20 grand a year to do it.
Sure.
But yeah, the being proactive with service rather than reactive, as in they call you, and then just taking full responsibility as a customer service rep.
That makes sense, because if you're reactive, you're putting out fires all the time, right? Versus proactive, I'm creating new friends all the time.
Well, and I would say, call me out on my stuff, but look up Missouri Medicare Advisors on Google. I'm going to do it right now. 885 reviews, 5.0. So like the proof is in the pudding. The proactive, and don't ask me how many clients we get off our Google My Business, because it's a lot. And so again, these are things that's like, hey, you create the product, which is us, our people, our brand, the 885 reviews. Like the people will just come because like the next best in Springfield is like 190. Like we destroy everyone almost in the entire state. We have the most reviews of any insurance agency, PNC, Life, Medicare, whatever it is, almost in the entire state. And so like these are things, you create the experience, and then the people just flock to you because they see that so many other people had a great experience with you.
Good stuff, man. Walt Disney said it himself. He said, do what you do so well that your customers come back again and again, and they bring their friends and their family with them. So you're obviously, you emulate that very well, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show, man. Thank you guys for tuning in. If somebody wants to chat with you, somebody wants to reach out, pick your brain, maybe come under your wing and work with you. You're not shy here. How do they reach out to you best?
Just shoot me a friend request on Facebook and message me. I'll be honest, I'm pretty bad about all of that stuff, texting back, calling back, and messaging back, but I'll do my best.
I can attest to that, because
I've
hung out with you in Springfield. You're like, hey, you want to go out with me, Merwin? I'm like, yeah, go. And then we get there, and then he just leaves. He just bolts immediately. I'm like, oh, well, thanks for dropping me off at the local club in Springfield. Appreciate you.
It's not really my thing too much. I get kind of bored, and I'm like, wait, why aren't we building funnels right now?
Right on, man. Well, thank you again for tuning in, man. I really appreciate you. You're a great.
I appreciate you having me on.
Of this business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you guys again for tuning in. We're here every Wednesday. We'll see you next time at 9 a.m. Y'all have a great week.